Hello. Thank you for agreeing to offer your time as an admissions interviewer to assist in the process of evaluating candidates for the entering class of 2015. Interview training is required for all interviewers, so whether this is your first time or you are an experienced interviewer, please take the time to view this presentation in its entirety. We have made some changes to the interview process since the last application cycle, and it is always good to hear the key messages regarding the interview and admissions process. You may wish to refer to the interview guidelines packet, which was included with the email for this training session. We have a lot of information to cover in a short amount of time, so let's get started. The objectives of this training session are to provide you with a very brief overview of the application process, to share information, data, and guidelines for interviewing and evaluating candidates for the MD program, explain your role and responsibilities as an interviewer, and finally, to offer strategies for the objective, thoughtful assessment of medical school candidates. The interview is one very important aspect of the holistic review process for deciding which applicants to accept into medical school. Intellectual ability and record of achievement are important factors. However, the personal interview gives the admissions committee another dimension by which to evaluate and understand other traits necessary to foster the development of a competent, compassionate, and responsible physician. Holistic review is a flexible way of assessing an applicant's capabilities by which balanced consideration is given to experiences, attributes, and academic metrics, and when considered in combination, how the individual might contribute value as a medical student and future physician. Think of an applicant as an iceberg, where their academic information, like the MCAT and GPA, are more apparent. Other valuable qualities are less apparent. The Office of Admissions employs a mission-centered review process in the holistic assessment of applicant qualities and characteristics. It is important for everyone affiliated with the admissions process to have a clear understanding of the mission, vision, and recruitment priorities of the medical school. The mission of the medical school drives our recruitment efforts as well as the holistic review for each applicant. In short, our mission is to graduate physicians who serve the health needs of the people in Minnesota, the nation, and the world through excellence in clinical medicine, research education, and healthcare leadership. As the public medical school for the state of Minnesota, our recruitment priority is for Minnesota residents. In addition, we believe the mission of this institution will be further accomplished by matriculating a diverse and accomplished student body. The University of Minnesota Medical School is committed to excellence in fulfilling its mission. We uphold that an environment of inclusiveness, equal opportunity, and respect for the similarities and differences in our community fosters excellence, and that institutional diversity fuels the scholarly advancement of knowledge. An atmosphere where differences are valued leads to the training of a culturally competent healthcare workforce qualified to meet the needs of the varied populations we serve. The medical school seeks to achieve a diverse learning environment through the recruitment, enrollment, hiring, and retention graduation of students, faculty, and staff who are underrepresented in medicine. Those groups which are underrepresented for the demographics of Minnesota include African Americans, Hispanics, Latino, Native Americans, Native Hawaiians, Pacific Islanders, Native Alaskans, and Hmong. We value individuals from rural backgrounds, first-generation college students, persons of economically disadvantaged backgrounds, as well as those who have taken a non-traditional path to medicine. Our mission, our commitment to diversity, and our selection criteria are the driving forces for the way we evaluate and accept candidates for admission to the medical school. Applicants who receive an invitation to interview at the University of Minnesota have been vetted by members of the admissions committee based on the qualities that we hold as essential and desired for the ideal medical student. We look for applicants with a strong academic profile, those who demonstrate that they have the potential to succeed in medical school, and through the continuum of their medical training and practice. We also look for applicants who demonstrate a passion and understanding for medicine and a commitment to service. Applicants must also demonstrate an interest in the University of Minnesota. Lastly, it is essential for applicants to the medical school to demonstrate unassailable professional conduct, outstanding interpersonal skills, and a dedication to lifelong learning, qualities which you will hopefully identify during the interview. The essential and desired qualities are demonstrated by the applicant's academic performance, including MCAT scores and undergraduate performance. They are further demonstrated by the various personal and medical or human service experiences which the applicant has performed. In addition to personal experiences, the personal statement, letters of recommendation, and other factors such as academic honors, research, leadership, and extracurricular activities also help to distinguish the applicant as a unique contributor to the class. Applications to medical school have increased steadily over the past 6 years at the national level, with the same trend occurring at the University of Minnesota. However, the entering class at the University of Minnesota Medical School has remained consistent at 170. So, as the number of applications continue to increase, the applicant pool becomes increasingly competitive as we work to seat a class of 170 students. For the 2014 application cycle, we received 3,716 primary applications. It is important to note that we typically begin with an applicant pool of 80% non-residents and 20% Minnesota residents, a ratio that will invert by the end of the application cycle because of our mission-driven review process and recruitment priority for Minnesota residents. Of the 3,716 applicants who submitted a primary application, 2,308 completed the supplemental application and were reviewed for interview consideration. Of those, 562 were interviewed, and on August 4th, we will matriculate a class of 170 students, 161 for the MD program and 9 for the Medical Scientist Training Program. With each phase of the application process, the number of candidates decreases while the profile of the applicant pool increases. At the interview level for the 2014 application cycle, the average GPA was 3.8 and the average MCAT score 32. The entering class profile for 2014 will not be final until classes begin on August 4th, but at present, current accepted applicants hold an average GPA of 3.79 and an average MCAT of 32. So, just how do we get from 3,700 applications to an entering class of 170? Applicants begin to apply to AMCAS, the Central Application Center for Medical School Applicants to U.S. medical schools, in June. Those that are qualified as determined by a pre-screening process are invited to complete the supplemental application. Completed files are assigned to committee members for first review to determine if the applicant should be granted an interview. After the interview report is included in the file, and the file is assigned for a second review, which leads to discussion and final vote by the committee to determine if the applicant should be accepted, waitlisted, or rejected. That's the short version of a process that takes about 1 full year to complete. The admissions interview is an opportunity for the interviewer to gather information about the applicant, as well as for the applicant to gain information about the school. The interview cycle begins in August and continues through February, with interviews scheduled for 40 days on Mondays and Fridays only. Applicants will have 2 interviews, one with an MD and the second with another MD, PhD, or a current medical student. You will receive notification of a scheduled interview in advance of the day you're scheduled. With this advance notice, all interviewers, including student interviewers, will have access to background information on the AMCAS application, including experiences and personal statements, and also the supplemental application to review prior to the interview. Academic metrics and letters of recommendation are suppressed from the view. All of the information you need to review and assess applicants for suitability for admission is available online through our electronic file review system. During the interview, you will want to gauge the applicant's level of maturity, their communication skills, as well as their ability to demonstrate the essential and desired qualities. All interviewers should be familiar with the interview questions and be prepared to ask at least one required question from each section of the interview evaluation form. In addition to the required questions, feel free to pose any additional questions you may have for the applicant and allow time for the applicant to ask you questions as well. We will touch on this more in a later slide. The interview experience is a full day at the University of Minnesota. Applicants have the opportunity to meet and engage with staff, students, faculty, and committee members from the time they arrive at 8 o'clock in the morning until approximately 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Each applicant will receive 2 interviews, which should last no more than 45 minutes. After the interview, we ask that you complete the interview report within 48 hours. After the interview, each applicant will have the opportunity to reflect on the interview day experience at the University of Minnesota and provide feedback via an online survey. Based on responses to the 2014 Interview Day survey, we are doing an excellent job of hosting applicants and exposing them to a broad representation of the medical school community in effort to recruit them. We will continue to search for ways to improve the overall quality of the interview day experience. To that end, we would like to share a few interview guidelines to help make the interview experience effective and enjoyable for the applicant as well as for you, the interviewer. It is important to establish and maintain a positive tone for the interview in order to put the applicant at ease. Listen closely and watch for any nonverbal cues that may provide more insight about the applicant that might be helpful to the committee in making a final decision. Use the entire 45 minutes or as much of the time as possible. Applicants often express concern if the interview lasts for less than the allotted time. Remain objective and non-biased. Don't box the candidate into a perceived sense of who you think they are or should be, and don't let the applicant's personal statement or list of experiences bias your opinion or ability to evaluate the applicant objectively. Treat every candidate the same and maintain a level of sensitivity for applicants of diverse backgrounds and beliefs. Finally, take substantive notes and complete the interview form in as much detail as possible, as soon as possible, while the impression of your conversation is still fresh. New this year, in effort to prevent candidates from being asked the same interview question during both interviews, we have assigned specific required questions for the specified interview time slot. Refer to the interview evaluation key, Appendix D, in the interview guidelines booklet. For example, in Section A, Motivation for a Career in Medicine, you will notice that there are required questions for the 8:30 and 9:20 interview time slots, and another set of required questions for the 10:10 and 11 interview time slots. You will receive an email reminder at least 72 hours in advance of your scheduled interview, so please take the time to review the appropriate interview questions as well as the applicant file prior to the interview. If you are going to ask additional questions, consider whether or not your questions meet the standards listed on this slide. In short, we ask all interviewers to refrain from asking obscure questions that do not add value to the interview and serve no purpose for the fair evaluation of a candidate. This is a short list of do's and don'ts for the interview. This is a recruitment opportunity. Please be friendly, open, and professional. It's okay to share some of your life experiences, but don't overemphasize your personal story. The interview is about the applicant. Please refer to the 2014-2015 interviewing guidelines for more interview tips. This is a sample of the interview evaluation key. Please refer to the interview evaluation key and form in the interview guidelines packet, Appendix D and E, respectively. You are required to complete each comment section and rating field on the interview evaluation form. Each subject area is based on a 5-point rating scale. A rating of 5 denotes an exceptional demonstration of knowledge or competency in a given area, while a rating of 1 indicates that an applicant was unable to demonstrate competency in that area. A candidate can earn a maximum rating of 25 based on your evaluation. Applicants who score in the range of 6 to 11 points are considered non-competitive. Those scoring between 12 and 18 are considered less competitive. And those who score between 19 and 25 are considered highly competitive, highly admissible, and therefore high recruits. Your thoughtful and reflective comments regarding the applicant you interview provides further information for the admissions committee to make a final decision. When completing the interview report, you are required to enter a rating as well as comments to support your evaluation. Here are a few examples. In this example, there is a significant disparity in the final ratings from each of the interviewers for this candidate. This is neither good or bad. Each interviewer will evaluate an applicant individually for the level of competence demonstrated in each area of the interview evaluation form. So whether the candidate demonstrates a high or low level of competence in any area, your comments regarding the candidate should support your rating for each area. The bolded domain will be discussed more specifically on the next slide. Continuing with the same example, we see that the first interviewer gave the applicant a lower rating of 2 in the area of commitment to improving the human condition. Referring to the interview evaluation key, this rating indicates the applicant demonstrates a superficial understanding of a future personal mission in medicine and provides vague viewpoints on service to others, etc. Interviewer 1 provided thoughtful and detailed comments to justify the rating for this area. Interviewer 2 provided limited comments. The admissions committee would benefit from a more substantive comment for a rating of 4. A rating of 4 should describe an applicant who demonstrates clear satisfaction from aiding others, expresses clear goals of a future personal mission in medicine, and has a realistic idea of the practice of medicine. It is important and extremely helpful to the admissions committee for interviewers to include sufficient comments to justify the ratings given in each segment of the interview evaluation form. In example 2, the interviewers were pretty much in accord about the applicant. In fact, the first interviewer gave the applicant the highest rating in each category. It doesn't happen very often that an applicant receives a perfect rating, but when it does, the applicant is usually described as stellar or exceptional by all counts. The bolded domain will be discussed more specifically on the next slide. Again, the depth and detail of the interviewer comments help to validate the final rating. Interviewer 1 provides thorough comments which describe the ways in which the applicant displayed the characteristics associated with the highest ranking in the area of professional conduct, exceptional insight, compassion, and respect for diversity, and a nuanced understanding of the ethical dilemmas embedded in the scenario of the interview question. Interviewer 2 relates the applicant's response to the interview questions for this area. This is helpful. However, more substantive written comments connecting the candidate's response to the characteristics associated with a rating of 4 would provide additional necessary information for the admissions committee. Your role as an interviewer is very important to the admissions process. Your thoughtful, reflective comments help to provide clarity and the rationale for your interview evaluation. This provides objective data to help the admissions committee make the final decision to accept, waitlist, or reject an applicant. We have covered a lot of information in this presentation. Feel free to refer back to this presentation and other interview resources on the resource page in the electronic file review system. After completing this training session, you will receive the link to access the EFR system, as well as further instructions for completing the interview report online. Now to recap a few expectations for all interviewers. Prepare for your interviews in advance. You will receive a reminder email 72 hours in advance of a scheduled interview to allow sufficient time for you to review the applicant file. Interview reports are due within 48 hours. Any delay in the process will delay the final decision for the applicant, so please do your best to keep the process moving by completing your interview assessment immediately after the interview if possible. Remember, new this year, the required questions are associated with allotted interview time blocks. You will be reminded of this with the 72-hour email alert. New student interviewers are required to shadow an interview before conducting interviews independently. The Office of Admissions will arrange those shadowing experiences for you. Last but not least, we ask that you sign up for at least 3 interview days. Finally, we want to make you aware of resources available to assist you with the interview process. New interviewers will receive access to the EFR after completing this training session. You will use the EFR to review applicant files prior to the interview and also to submit your comments and ratings via the interview evaluation form. You will also be able to sign up for additional interviews and refer to the resource documents and information. Feel free to contact Lola if you have any questions or concerns about the interview schedule or if you need to reschedule an interview. Contact Jeff or Carrie if you have any systems or reporting issues, and contact Dimple Patel, the Associate Dean for Admissions, for any other questions, concerns, or issues related to interviews or the admissions process in general. Thank you again for choosing to serve as an interviewer for the Office of Admissions. Your participation in the process will have a direct impact on the composition of the entering class for 2015. Click on the hyperlink on this screen to confirm your completion of the training. Within a few days, you will receive an email message containing the link to access the electronic file review system with instructions. Thanks again, and enjoy the connection you make with prospective students.